Hello everyone, welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be recapping my round 5 game that I played in the World Open. Now going to this game, I was at 2.5 out of 4, and the 5th round I am playing someone rated 2252. So let's see what happens in the game. I play c5, knight f3, knight c6, and here he plays move g3, very unorthodox. I've never played against a move like g3, so I just play g6, bishop g2, bishop g7. The opponent is trying to control this d4 square, so white can never break open the center with d4. He castles, I go e6, and he goes c3, actually trying to prepare d4, which sort of contradicts what I said earlier, but I had this idea of I'm going to develop my knight, and at d4, I was going to trade off the pawns and go d5, and the point of d5 is if I just castle, white could actually play d5 here, and after something like trade, knight e5, knight c3, or maybe even d6 first, and then knight c3, white is probably better because of a lot more space. So I go d5, and after e5, and now we go bishop d7. I delay castling because I actually liked having my king in the center. I felt my king was more safer here. Plus, if I played a move like castle, I just got kind of paranoid that white could launch some sort of attack with like h4 or f4, which is probably not possible. But I go bishop d7, knight c3, and I can see he's trying to go knight b5 and get his knight to d6, so I go a6, and now he goes bishop to f4, and I go rook c8. I'm just trying to delay castling as much as possible because I don't see a reason for me to castle now. And I thought I could play this game more interesting and just maybe not castle and then try and play on the queen side as much as possible. He goes queen d2, I go h6. Now he goes h4. And now here I go b5. And after rook f1, now I go queen b6. I'm just trying to play as much as I can on the queen side, maybe stuff like b4, also targeting this pawn with maybe knight f5 coming in the future, also knight a5, knight c4. So yeah, I have a lot of ideas here in the position. My opponent goes b3, and this softens the knight up a little bit. So now I go knight f5. I see this as a great opportunity to actually make a threat in this position. And here, he sort of falls for it, but not really. He goes rook a d1, and I immediately saw I could take this pawn. And the point is, if we trade off everything, he thinks he's winning a knight, but actually, he's losing his knight, and I am just up a pawn in the end of this line. But after knight c takes d4, I calculated after knight d4, he can trade and go knight takes d5 first. And I thought this could be very dangerous in the future, or if same thing happens after knight f takes d4, maybe like take and then knight d5, and this is very dangerous after take and queen d4. This pawn is now super weak, and if we trade queens, I'm still losing the pawn. So after rook a d1, I just go h5. The point is now to just to get rid of his h6 weakness and cement my knight on f5, also stopping potential g4. And now he goes bishop h3, which is actually a blunder because now I actually can take on d4. And the point is, after knight takes d4, knight takes d4, I go queen takes d4. And the point is, after stuff like knight takes d5, I can actually take the knight on f3, and I'll always have like threats of winning the rook, and that's probably not a very good example. So let's say after trade, and then d5, I have knight f3 check, picking up the rook on e1. So now after queen takes d4, my opponent goes knight e2, and I now trade the queens, and I just go knight e7 back, trying to reroute my knight to target this pawn. And now I'm just up a pawn, and I think everything should be fine. But after knight d4, he goes knight c6. He's trying to just set up a blockade. I trade the pieces off. Now he goes a4. I trade, and now I go castle. I think there's no danger, and I'm just trying to bring in my rooks, maybe win this pawn now, and just win the game as fast as possible. But actually, I completely miss a resource he has, and I'll give you you can pause the video and try to find it yourself. The move is rook takes d5, and after I take the rook, my opponent now takes the bishop on d7, and I am just up in exchange now, but with threats like e6 and breaking my pawn structure, I go rook c4, he goes e6, I tear out the pawns, king e7 takes my pawn, rook a4, and a point after rook e7, my king could be in serious trouble, and white does have a few threats like bishop e5, and I thought if king h8, then he can actually go rook e6 and attack this pawn, and let's say after a5, rook takes g6, I don't even know what's going on in the position. There's a chance I could genuinely lose if he somehow finds a way to win this pawn and pushes its h pawn. So I thought after rook e7, I was kind of sad after this position because I knew I was a lot better after he blundered knight takes d4 trick. But now he sort of equalized, and that the best thing to do is just to sack my rook for the bishop and make the position like as less complicated as possible. The thing is, the point of this is now I'm still up a pawn. My opponent does have this h4 weakness, which I can target with my rook and bishop, and I'm up a pawn, which is this a passed pawn, and I could maybe use that as an asset in the future. But with good play, this should just be a draw. So my opponent goes rook e6. I now go rook f6. Usually you want to trade off in these opposite colored bishops. You want to just like trade off pieces as much as possible, but he can't do that in this scenario because now I can win h4. And with two passed pawns, especially an a and h pawn, it's hard for the king and bishop to defend. It'll take a lot of resources. So now my opponent goes king g2. I just push my pawn to a5, rook e4, rook d6, now bishop f7, now bishop f6. So a lot of just maneuvering this position, this endgame, trying to get my position to trying to get my pieces to exactly where I want them to be. After king g3, I go king g7 now, bishop e8, and now I go rook d3 check. And now after f3, now I go rook d2, and now I found this idea now, which is to reroute my bishop to c7 and actually try and checkmate the king, sort of. Let's just say rook a4, bishop d8, saw something like this. Then I could just go bishop c7 check, king h3, rook h2 is checkmate. After f4, now I could go rook d3 check, and bishop z8 and attack this pawn. And I saw this idea and I thought it's really nice, and maybe he could fall for something like that. So now my opponent goes bishop a4, I go bishop d8. Now after bishop e8, I go bishop c7 check, f4, rook e3, king d2. And now I don't go bishop d8 here, because my opponent actually has rook e6 attacking the pawn. So I go king f6. H also trying to get my king active to f5. My opponent goes rook c4, I go bishop d6. I'm just constantly keeping my sights on this pawn. After rook c6, he actually blundered in this position. This position was a draw all the way. After rook c6, it could still be a draw, but now my opponent allows me to push my pawn to a4. And after rook a6, a3, my pawn is much more dangerous on a3 than it is on a5, as it is only 2 squares away from promoting. And after bishop c6, I go king f5, and my opponent goes rook a4, threatening bishop e4 check. It's a nice little setup, a nice little trap. I now go rook e3. My opponent checks and now goes bishop c6, and I'm just trying to find a way to break through in this position. I don't see a way, so I just go rook d3, shuffling my rook. And now after bishop e4, now go rook d2 check, and I calculate this move a2. And it should just be a draw. And the point is, after a2, my position could get into a dead draw if my opponent just wins this pawn. But my idea was I'm gonna bring my king. I'm just gonna rush my king to try and attack this rook and try to help my pawn to promote. So now he goes king e3, and I thought this was just a straight up blunder because now I have this nice little neat trick bishop b4 protecting my rook. And after rook takes b4, there's a1 queen. But after bishop b4, also if he doesn't take my bishop, I could just go bishop c3 and a1 queen. But just to visualize what happened, I realized that I can't actually just do that straight up because he'll actually win my rook. My rook will be unprotected then. So my opponent goes rook a6 check, I go king e7, and now he just checks, and now I just continue to bring my king toward the queen side. Rook a6, king c5, And now my opponent takes, which is actually a blunder because now I can go king b5. And now he has to sack if he just continues the line of sight with this pawn. I can now go bishop a5, blockading. So now rook takes a2, rook a2, bishop h5. This position takes a little bit to convert, but shouldn't be too hard. I bring my king towards the center, bishop g6. Now I cut the king off some more, king e2, bishop g5. My bishop now keeps sight on both these pawns, so now I just go just try and checkmate the king now. I cornered the king, I cut it off again, king after king e1, bishop g5, threatening rook h1, checkmate, goes king d1, now I go king e3, now here goes bishop e8, I go rook f2, attacking the pawn again, now rook d2 check, king e1, and this just leads to forced mate. Better try was king c1, and I was gonna just go king d3, like allow this f6 check, because now I can go king c3, and just try and checkmate the king. But after king e1, I can go bishop h4, and now I'll go king f3, threatening rook d1 checkmate. And here my opponent resigns the game. So now my score is now at 3.5 out of 5. And yeah, with 4 more rounds left, I actually succeed with my goal in this tournament was to get 3 out of 9, but actually I overpassed it with 3.5. And it only took 5 rounds. So we'll see how I do in the next round. My next round is a very tough opponent. And yeah, that's all for today, and I hope you all enjoyed the video. Goodbye, everyone.